Why was the woman carrying coffee being shoved aside in the Pentagon hallway? Move it, coffee girl. The voice cuts through the marble corridor like a blade. Colonel Marcus Webb doesn't even glance at her as he pushes past. His shoulder catches hers. The coffee tray tilts. White porcelain cups clink against each other. The sound echoes like wind chimes in a storm. She steadies the tray, barely. Sorry, sir. Her voice is soft, almost a whisper. Her brown eyes fixed on the polished floor. The kind of floor that shows everything, every scuff mark, every imperfection, every person who doesn't belong. Sarah Mitchell stands 5'4" in worn combat boots. Her army uniform bears the wrinkles of an overnight shift. 27 years old, small frame, quiet voice, the kind of person who becomes invisible in rooms full of loud men. Nobody would guess, not one person in this hallway would imagine, that this woman, struggling with a coffee tray, belongs in the most classified war room in America. Cafeterias on the second floor, sweetheart. Major Brad Stevens straightens his tie, exchanges glances with his colleagues. His voice carries that particular tone, the one that makes women feel small without saying anything explicitly wrong. This area is for people who actually know how to fight. Laughter erupts, rough and careless, the kind of laughter that costs nothing to the people giving it, but takes everything from the person receiving it. They have no idea. In exactly 18 minutes, something will happen, something that will make this entire hallway fall silent as a tomb. The silver ring hidden beneath Sarah's tactical gloves, when it's exposed, when the symbol becomes visible. General Morrison, standing at the end of the hallway with silver stars gleaming on his shoulders, will freeze. He'll recognize something, something he thought was buried with classified files 3 years ago. But right now, these officers are about to make the most catastrophic mistake of their military careers. Sarah adjusts her grip, her movements precise despite the visible tremor. Exhaustion lives in her bones. She'd arrived at 500 hours that morning, alone as always, carrying her worn tactical bag, the kind that's seen better decades. While other officers socialized in expensive clusters, she sat in corners, reviewing classified documents, intelligence reports that would determine the fate of American soldiers overseas. Her brown hair catching fluorescent light as she concentrated on information most people would never see. The phone call from her mother the night before still echoes. "When are you getting that promotion, honey? Your father would be so proud to see his little girl moving up in the world." Sarah's response had been barely audible, even to herself. "Soon, hopefully, Mom, soon." But hope feels distant in sterile hallways, where being small, quiet, and female means being invisible, or worse, being seen as incompetent. Colonel Marcus Webb dominates every room he enters, 52 years old, 6'3". His voice booms even when he's saying nothing important. Former infantry officer, bitter about his desk assignment. He compensates for his frustration by asserting dominance over anyone he perceives as weak. Women, especially young women like Sarah, represent everything he believes doesn't belong in his military. Major Brad Stevens is different, 38, charismatic, graduated from Ranger School with honors. His natural leadership makes him popular among junior officers, but his popularity comes with a dark side. He enjoys having an audience for his cruel humor. Sarah has become his favorite target. Lieutenant Jake Morrison, 31 and technically brilliant, prides himself on intelligence analysis expertise. He has a particular talent for explaining military concepts to female officers, regardless of their actual knowledge, regardless of their experience. His condescending tone can make even the most accomplished woman feel like a first-year cadet. Staff Sergeant Rick Torres, 29 and resentful, takes pleasure in making life difficult for commissioned officers. His jealousy manifests in subtle sabotage. The kind that's hard to prove but impossible to ignore. As Sarah enters the briefing room, something changes in her movement, something subtle. Her eyes automatically catalog the room's exits, the positions of potential cover, the sightlines from every angle. It's a habit so deeply ingrained she doesn't even think about it, the way most people breathe. Her tactical bag contains equipment that would raise eyebrows if anyone bothered to look. Specialized communication devices with satellite connectivity, a ruggedized tablet designed for battlefield conditions, technology that can withstand temperatures and impacts that would destroy civilian electronics entirely. Coffee, sir. Sarah approaches Webb's position near the conference table, her voice quiet, always quiet. Webb knocks over a stack of papers with his elbow. Classified documents scatter across the floor like fallen leaves. Clean that up. He doesn't look at her, doesn't need to. Women belong in logistics, not combat planning. Maybe if you spent less time trying to play soldier and more time learning your actual job, we wouldn't have this kind of mess. The other officers laugh. None of them notice. The way Sarah's eyes track the classified information as she kneels, how she pauses for just a fraction of a second when she spots something, a critical intelligence leak that could compromise ongoing operations. Her photographic memory catalogs every detail, but she remains silent, always silent. You know what? Major Stevens announces to the room, his voice carrying authority, the kind that comes from always having an audience. Let's put our coffee girl to work. Mitchell, you're on serving duty for today's briefing. Let the men handle the real military work. Sarah's jaw tightens, almost imperceptibly, but she nods. Yes, sir. As she serves coffee to assembled officers, she overhears their tactical discussion. They're planning a counterinsurgency operation in a region she knows intimately, and every word they speak reveals their fundamental misunderstanding of the enemy's capabilities, of their motivations, of everything that matters. Lieutenant Morrison begins explaining operational parameters with the confident ignorance of someone who has never left American soil. The Taliban forces in this sector operate according to predictable patterns, standard asymmetric warfare tactics, nothing we haven't seen 1,000 times before. Sarah knows he's wrong, catastrophically wrong, dangerously wrong. The forces in that region have evolved far beyond standard insurgency tactics. They've incorporated sophisticated technology, psychological warfare techniques that Morrison's textbook knowledge can't account for. She's seen their work firsthand, studied their methods during countless sleepless nights in forward operating bases that officially don't exist. Sir. She approaches Morrison quietly, holding a fresh cup of coffee. If I could just mention. You could mention that my coffee is getting cold. Stevens interrupts, his voice sharp with annoyance. Nobody asked for analysis from the help. The room erupts in laughter again. Heat rises in Sarah's cheeks. She retreats to the corner, but her mind continues processing the tactical errors she's witnessing. These men are planning to send soldiers into situations they don't understand, based on intelligence they're misreading, with strategies that will fail. And people will die because of it. She grips her coffee pot handle, white knuckles, the only visible sign of what's happening inside her. How many times has she been in this position? How many times has she watched competent plans crumble because someone wouldn't listen? Because her voice was too quiet, her frame too small, her gender too wrong for the room she was standing in. But there's something they don't know, something she hasn't told them, not yet. What happens when silence becomes unbearable? The briefing continues. Webb points at satellite imagery displayed on screens. Morrison explains tactical approaches that would have been outdated 5 years ago. Stevens makes jokes that get reliable laughs. Torres takes notes with the enthusiasm of someone who already knows he won't read them later. and Sarah stands in the corner, holding an empty coffee pot, watching good soldiers get sent to their deaths. She thinks about her father, Colonel David Mitchell. He'd served 3 tours in Afghanistan before the IED took him. She was 16. He'd written her letters from the field, always ending the same way. Stand up for what's right, Sarah, even when it costs you everything. Especially when it costs you everything. She sets down the coffee pot. Her hand moves to her tactical glove. There's a moment of hesitation. Once she does this, there's no going back. The comfortable invisibility she's maintained, the safety of being underestimated, it all ends. But soldiers are going to die. She pulls off her glove. The silver ring catches the fluorescent light, a simple band, but the symbol etched into it. That symbol means something, to people who know, to people who have operated in places that don't appear on maps. She raises her hand, not dramatically, just enough. "Excuse me, Colonel Webb." Her voice is still quiet, but there's something different in it now, something that makes several officers glance her way. Webb doesn't look up from the satellite imagery. "Coffee girl, I don't have time for that operation. Your planning will fail within the first 6 hours." The room goes quiet, not silent, just quiet enough that her words carry. Stevens laughs. "Oh, this should be good. Please, enlighten us with your extensive combat experience." Sarah steps forward, still small, still quiet, but something has shifted in the room's atmosphere. The forces in Sector 7 don't operate on predictable patterns anymore. They've adapted, incorporated drone surveillance, learned to exploit gaps in satellite coverage. They know when our birds are overhead. They know how to disappear. Morrison scoffs, "And you know this how? From serving coffee." "I know this because I spent 18 months in that sector, operating with a team that officially doesn't exist, conducting missions that won't appear in any briefing you'll ever attend." Webb finally looks at her, really looks at her, his eyes narrow. "That's a hell of a claim for someone whose name I don't even." He stops. His gaze has fallen on her hand, on the silver ring, on the symbol that makes his face drain of color. General Morrison enters the briefing room at that exact moment. He's holding a tablet, probably reviewing the day's agenda. His silver stars catch the light as he moves. 72 years old, 4 decades of service, a man who's seen everything the military has to offer. He glances up, sees Sarah, sees her hand, sees the ring. He freezes, completely still, like someone's paused time itself. The tablet slips from his fingers, clatters on the floor. Nobody moves to pick it up. "Captain Mitchell." His voice is barely above a whisper, the kind of whisper that carries more weight than any shout. "Sir." Sarah stands at attention, instinctively. Morrison walks toward her, slowly, his eyes never leaving the ring. When he reaches her, he takes her hand gently, studies the symbol. His jaw works like he's trying to find words that won't come. "I was told you were dead." The room has gone completely silent now, every officer staring, trying to understand what they're witnessing. The mission in Coast Province, 3 years ago, the compound assault that went wrong. I was told the entire team was killed. I attended the classified memorial service myself. Sarah's voice is steady, but there's pain in it, the kind that never fully heals. 4 members of the team died that night, sir. 3 of us made it out. I spent 6 months in a medical facility that doesn't exist on any map. Another year in psychological rehabilitation. They offered me medical discharge with full benefits. But you came back. I came back. Morrison's eyes are wet. He doesn't try to hide it. Do you know what this ring means? He asks the question to the room, to Webb, to Stevens, to Morrison, to Torres, to every officer who spent the last hour treating Sarah like she was invisible. Nobody answers. This ring is given to operators in the intelligence support activity, the most classified unit in the United States military. We don't acknowledge their existence. We don't discuss their missions. And we sure as hell don't have them serving coffee in Pentagon briefings. Webb's face has gone pale. Stevens looks like he's been struck. Morrison, the lieutenant, seems to have shrunk into himself. Torres is staring at his shoes. General Morrison still holds Sarah's hand, still looking at the ring. How many operations? 37 confirmed missions over 5 years, sir. Various theaters, various objectives, mostly direct action and intelligence gathering in areas where conventional forces couldn't operate. Languages: fluent in Pashto, Dari, and Arabic, conversational in Russian and Mandarin. Specializations: signals intelligence, human intelligence, close quarters combat, advanced marksmanship, tactical medicine, cultural expertise in Middle Eastern and Central Asian operations. Morrison releases her hand, steps back, his professional composure returning. And you've been here how long? 6 months, sir. After rehabilitation, they offered me a position in tactical planning. I thought I was ready for a desk job, thought I could contribute from behind the scenes. But instead, you've been serving coffee. It's not a question. It's a statement of fact, an acknowledgement of failure. Not Sarah's failure, but the failure of every person in this room who looked at her and saw only what they expected to see. Webb finds his voice. It's smaller now, uncertain. Sir, I had no idea that. You had no idea because you didn't bother to find out. Morrison's voice cuts like steel. You saw a small woman with a quiet voice and decided she was incompetent. You didn't check her file, didn't review her credentials, didn't ask a single question about her background. You just assumed. He turns to address the entire room, his voice carrying the weight of rank and disappointment. This woman has more combat experience than everyone in this room combined. She's operated in some of the most dangerous places on Earth. She's made decisions under pressure that would have broken most of you, and you had her serving coffee. The silence is crushing now, the kind that makes people want to disappear. But there's something worse coming, something Sarah can see in Morrison's eyes, recognition beyond just her identity. He's realizing something else. The operation you're planning, Sector 7. Morrison looks at the satellite imagery, then back at Sarah. You were about to tell them it would fail. Yes, sir. Why? Because I was there 2 months ago, conducting reconnaissance for a different operation. The enemy has evolved. They're using technology we didn't expect, tactics we haven't countered yet. If conventional forces go in with standard protocols, it will be a massacre. The word hangs in the air, massacre. Webb tries to recover some authority. With all due respect, Captain, our intelligence suggests. Your intelligence is 4 months old. Sarah's voice is still quiet, but now everyone's listening. I know because I provided the initial reports that your intelligence is based on. But the situation has changed, dramatically, and nobody updated the assessment because the people who could update it are all operating in theaters that officially don't exist. Morrison nods slowly, making a decision. Colonel Webb, Major Stevens, Lieutenant Morrison, you're dismissed from this planning session. Staff Sergeant Torres, you're dismissed as well. Return to your regular duties. Sir, we've spent weeks on this operational plan, and you're about to get soldiers killed because of it. Dismissed. The 4 men file out, their faces reflecting different shades of humiliation and anger. The door closes behind them with a soft click. Morrison turns back to Sarah. Tell me everything. Can you rebuild from the ground up in 60 minutes? The briefing room feels different now, emptier, but somehow more focused. General Morrison sits at the head of the table. Sarah stands at the satellite display, her finger tracing movements across terrain she knows like her own heartbeat. The enemy adapted after our raids last year. They realized we were tracking their communications, so they went dark, old school, runners instead of radios, dead drops instead of digital. We lost our primary intelligence advantage overnight. Morrison leans forward, decades of experience telling him to trust what he's hearing. But you found a way in. We found a pattern. They can go dark on communications, but they can't hide their logistics. Food, water, ammunition, medical supplies, everything has to move, and movement leaves traces. She pulls up thermal imaging from satellite passes. Here, see these heat signatures. Most analysts would dismiss them as campfires, shepherd camps, nomadic families, but the timing is wrong, the locations are wrong, and the patterns repeat in ways that natural activity doesn't. Morrison studies the imagery, seeing it now through Sarah's eyes. Supply routes. Exactly. And once you understand the supply routes, you understand their operational capacity, where they can mass forces, how long they can sustain operations, where they're vulnerable. She changes the display, shows terrain analysis overlaid with intelligence markers. The operation Webb was planning would have inserted forces here, in what appears to be a lightly defended valley. Good helicopter approach, decent cover, looks perfect on satellite imagery. But it's not. It's a kill zone. They've positioned heavy weapons in concealed emplacements, here, here, and here, dug into cliff faces where satellite imagery can't detect them. They've been waiting months for us to make exactly this kind of move. Morrison's jaw tightens, understanding the implications. How many soldiers would we have lost? Sarah's voice drops even quieter. 30, maybe 40 in the initial insertion. The entire operation would have been compromised. The enemy would have had American prisoners, hostages, propaganda footage. It would have been a strategic disaster beyond just the tactical losses. The weight of it settles in the room. 30 or 40 lives, families destroyed, futures erased, all because nobody listened to the quiet woman serving coffee. Morrison runs his hand over his face, suddenly looking every one of his 72 years. Show me the right approach. Sarah spends the next hour reconstructing the operation from the ground up, not with the arrogance of someone proving a point, but with the precision of someone who's operated in these spaces, who's lived through the consequences of bad planning. She identifies insertion points that avoid detection, routes that use terrain for concealment, timing that exploits gaps in enemy surveillance, every suggestion backed by recent intelligence, by direct observation, by experience earned in places that don't appear in official records. Morrison asks questions, good questions, the kind that come from decades of service. Sarah answers each one, not defensive, not condescending, just thorough, professional. It's what she should have been allowed to do from the beginning. By the time they finish, the operation looks completely different. Smaller teams, better intelligence, reduced risk, higher probability of success. Morrison saves the revised plan, then sits back in his chair. How long have you been back? 6 months. And in those 6 months, how many times have you tried to contribute, to share your expertise? Sarah considers the question, honestly. Dozens of times, maybe more, but my input was always dismissed, sometimes politely, usually not. After a while, I stopped trying. Why didn't you report the hostile work environment? To whom, sir? Everyone I could report to was part of the problem, and I was still finding my footing after rehabilitation, still figuring out if I even belonged here anymore. Morrison nods, understanding more than he's saying. That question you were about to ask, before Stevens interrupted you. You were going to tell them the operation would fail, even knowing they'd dismiss you, even knowing they'd mock you. You were going to say it anyway. Yes, sir. Why? Sarah looks at the satellite imagery, at terrain she knows so well she can feel it, at coordinates that represent real places where real people live and fight and die. Because being dismissed is uncomfortable, but soldiers dying is unforgivable, I could survive the discomfort. There's a long silence, Morrison studying her face, seeing something that makes him make a decision. Captain Mitchell, I owe you an apology, on behalf of this command, on behalf of every officer who looked at you and failed to see what was right in front of them. Sir, you don't need to. Yes, I do. Because rank without wisdom is just noise, and we've been making a lot of noise while ignoring the people who actually know what they're talking about. He stands, walks to the window overlooking the Pentagon grounds. I knew your father. David Mitchell was one of the finest officers I ever served with. He would be proud of what you've become, and ashamed of how we've treated you. Sarah feels something catch in her throat. She hasn't cried in years. Not since the night in that medical facility when they told her 3 of her teammates weren't coming back. She's not going to cry now, but it's close. What happens next, sir? Morrison turns back to her, something decisive in his expression. Next, we fix this operation. Then we fix the system that allowed this situation to happen in the first place. And then, Captain Mitchell, we figure out how to use your skills in the way they were always meant to be used. I'm not looking for special treatment. I'm not offering special treatment. I'm offering recognition. There's a difference. Special treatment is unearned advantage. Recognition is acknowledging capability that already exists. He pulls out his phone, makes a call that's answered on the first ring. This is General Morrison. I need a briefing with the Joint Chiefs. Priority 1, today if possible, tomorrow at the latest. He listens for a moment, then responds. Topic: we're about to discuss why our best assets are serving coffee while our operations are failing, and what we're going to do about it. He ends the call, looks at Sarah. Go home, get some rest. Tomorrow morning, 800 hours, you're briefing the highest-ranking officers in the United States military, not on operations, on systemic failures in how we identify and utilize talent. Sarah feels something she hasn't felt in months, something that might be hope, but there's also fear, the kind that comes from being visible when you've spent so long being invisible. Sir, I don't know if I'm ready for. Ready or not, you're the most qualified person to have this conversation, because you've lived it. You've experienced both sides, the classified operations where merit is everything, and the institutional bureaucracy where appearance is everything. He walks to the door, pauses with his hand on the handle. Your father used to say something. He said the quietest voices in the room often have the most important things to say. That real strength doesn't need to announce itself. It simply acts when action is required. Sarah nods, recognizing the words, remembering her father saying them to her when she was young. Tomorrow, Captain Mitchell, your voice is going to carry, whether you're ready for it or not, because silence isn't protecting you anymore. It's protecting the system that failed you. He leaves, the door closes, and Sarah stands alone in the briefing room, looking at satellite imagery of places she's been, battles she's fought, decisions she's made that saved lives and cost lives in ways that still wake her up at night. Tomorrow she'll brief the Joint Chiefs. Tomorrow her silence ends. But tonight she has something else to do, something she's been avoiding for 6 months. She needs to visit the memorial, the classified one, where they honor operators who die in places that don't officially exist. She needs to stand in front of 3 names, 3 people who didn't make it out of Coast Province, 3 teammates who deserved so much more than a classified memorial that their families can never visit. And she needs to tell them that she's finally using her voice, that she's finally standing up for what's right, even if it costs her everything. What do you tell the ghosts you carry? The classified memorial sits in a section of Arlington National Cemetery that doesn't appear on public maps. No signs mark the entrance. just a small path through trees that leads to a wall of black granite. Sarah stands in front of three names. They're not carved into the stone. Can't be. These names don't officially exist. Instead, they're displayed on a digital screen that changes based on who's accessing it. Biometric scanners, encrypted authentication. Even here in death, security matters. Captain James Rodriguez, 33, father of two, had a laugh that could fill any room. Lieutenant Lisa Chen, 29, engaged to be married, could speak 6 languages and make friends in all of them. Sergeant First Class Marcus Williams, 41, 19 years of service, taught Sarah everything she knows about staying calm under fire. They died 3 years ago, in a compound in Coast Province, during an operation that officially never happened, killed by enemies who officially don't exist, buried with honors their families could never fully understand. Sarah places her hand on the granite. It's cold. Even in the evening warmth, the stone holds a chill. I broke silence today. Her voice is soft, talking to people who can't hear her, but needing to say it anyway. I know you always said to keep my head down, to survive first, prove myself later, but I watched them plan an operation that would have killed 30 soldiers. Good soldiers, people with families and futures and dreams. She closes her eyes, remembering. I couldn't stay silent, not for that, you taught me better. The evening wind moves through the trees, carrying the scent of fresh-cut grass and distant rain, ordinary smells in an extraordinary place. They saw the ring. General Morrison recognized it. Everything's different now. Tomorrow I'm briefing the Joint Chiefs. Me, the quiet girl who used to hide in the corner during team meetings. A laugh escapes, bitter and sad. You'd all be making jokes right now. Rodriguez would say something about me finally getting loud. Chen would probably have already written my speech. Williams would tell me to breathe, stay calm, trust my training. She opens her eyes. The names still glow on the screen. Unchanging, eternal in their digital format, temporary in every other way. I'm scared, not of the briefing. I can handle that, but of what comes after. Once you're visible, you can't become invisible again. Once people know what you can do, they expect you to keep doing it. And I don't know if I have that in me anymore. Footsteps approach on the path. Sarah turns, instinctively alert. Old habits from operations where inattention meant death. An older woman walks toward the memorial. Late 50s, maybe early 60s. Gray hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Civilian clothes, but she moves with military bearing, the kind that never quite leaves. She stops a respectful distance away, waiting, acknowledging Sarah's presence without intruding. I'm sorry, Sarah says. I didn't mean to take up the whole space. You're not taking up anything that isn't yours by right. The woman steps closer, looks at the memorial screen. It shifts, shows different names for her, 3 different faces. My daughter, my son-in-law, his best friend, Syria 4 years ago. The words are simple, but the pain in them runs deep. Sarah doesn't know what to say. There are no good words for this. No consolation that reaches deep enough. I come here once a month, the woman continues. Even though they keep the screen technology updated so the displays are sharper, more vivid, even though I can access it from home with the right codes, I still come here. Does that make sense? Yes. Because grief needs a place, even classified grief, maybe especially classified grief. They stand in silence, 2 people with different losses, different names on the memorial, but the same hollow ache that never quite heals. What brings you here tonight? The woman asks gently. Sarah considers the question, considers how much to say. I made a choice today to stop being invisible, to use my voice even when it was safer to stay silent, and I needed to tell them, the people I lost, in case it all goes wrong. The woman nods, understanding more than Sarah said. My daughter used to say something. She said the hardest part of being classified isn't the danger, It's knowing that if you die, most of the world will never understand what you sacrificed. Your family gets a folded flag and a story full of holes, and you hope that's enough. It's never enough. No, but it's what we have. The woman reaches out, places her hand on the granite beside Sarah's. Whatever choice you made today, I hope it honors them, not by staying safe, but by being true to what they would have wanted from you, what they would have done themselves. They would have told me to fight. Then fight. The woman withdraws her hand, offers a small smile. They update the names on this memorial every month, add new ones, remove old ones when the classification expires or when families request it. My 3 names will come off next year. 20 years after their deaths, their service can finally be public. She pauses, looking at the screen, at faces only she can see. 20 years. Can you imagine? 20 years before I can tell anyone what my daughter really did, what she really was, before I can be fully proud without hiding half the truth. Sarah feels the weight of that. 20 years of partial grief, incomplete mourning, pride that can't be fully expressed. I'm sorry. Don't be, she chose this, knew the cost, paid it without regret. I'm the one who has to carry what she chose, and I'm honored to do it. The woman starts to walk away, then stops. Whatever you're fighting for tomorrow, make it count. Because there are families all over this country carrying losses they can't explain, honoring service they can't discuss, and they need people like you to make sure those sacrifices meant something. She leaves, her footsteps fading on the path, and Sarah stands alone again with her 3 names, with the ghost she carries, with the choice she made. Her phone buzzes, a text from General Morrison. Tomorrow, 800, Main Conference Room. Joint Chiefs, Deputy Secretary of Defense and Director of National Intelligence will be in attendance. You'll have 60 minutes. Make them count. 60 minutes. To change a system that's been failing for decades. To speak for everyone who's been dismissed, overlooked, underestimated. To honor the people she lost by making sure their sacrifice leads to something better. She types a response. I'll be ready, sir. But as she sends it, she wonders if that's true. Can anyone really be ready to fight a system from the inside? To challenge assumptions held by people with decades more experience and authority? Rodriguez's voice echoes in her memory, from a night in a safe house in Kabul, when she was new to the team and terrified of making mistakes. Being ready isn't about having all the answers, Mitchell. It's about trusting yourself enough to find the answers when you need them. You've got the skills. You've got the experience. Now you just need to trust that it's enough. Chen's voice joins it, from a different memory, a different mission. The people who change things aren't the loudest ones in the room. They're the ones who speak with such truth that everyone else has to stop and listen. You have that truth, Sarah. You just need to let it out. And Williams, always Williams, the steady voice that got her through the worst moments. Courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and doing it anyway. And you, Mitchell, you've got more courage than anyone I've ever known. You just don't see it yet. Sarah places her forehead against the granite, cold stone grounding her in the present, in this moment, in this choice. I'll make it count. I promise. Whatever happens tomorrow, I'll make your sacrifices mean something. Because you deserved so much better than classified graves and digital names on a hidden memorial. The wind picks up, moving through trees, carrying leaves and whispers and the weight of 100,000 decisions made in the dark. Sarah straightens, steps back from the memorial. The screen shifts, returning to its default display, neutral, waiting for the next person to authenticate, to access their private grief. She walks back down the path, through trees that hide this place from casual observation, back to her car, back to the world where tomorrow she has to be loud. Tomorrow she speaks for everyone who's been silenced. But tonight she said what she needed to say, to the people who matter most, to the ghosts who will never let her rest, to the teammates who died believing in something bigger than themselves. And if she fails tomorrow, if her voice doesn't carry far enough, if the system doesn't change, at least she will have tried, at least she will have fought, at least she will have stood up when it mattered most. Sometimes that has to be enough. How do you face the people who decide everything? The Pentagon conference room seats 40 people comfortably. This morning it holds exactly 19. Each one carries enough authority to reshape military policy with a signature. Each one has decades of experience that Sarah doesn't have. Each one is watching her with expressions ranging from curiosity to skepticism. General Morrison sits at the far end of the table, his face neutral, but there's something in his eyes. Support, maybe, or just hope that he didn't make a catastrophic mistake. Sarah stands at the front of the room, her dress uniform pressed to perfection, her hair pulled back in regulation style, the silver ring visible on her finger. A choice, to show them what she is before she tells them who she is. Good morning, I'm Captain Sarah Mitchell, and for the past 6 months I've been serving coffee at Pentagon briefings. Several officers exchange glances. One whispers something to his neighbor, but they're listening. I'm not here to complain about how I've been treated. I'm here to explain why my treatment represents a systemic failure that's costing us operational effectiveness. She pulls up a slide, not fancy graphics, just simple text. I have 18 months of direct combat experience in Afghanistan, 37 confirmed classified operations, fluency in 3 languages with conversational ability in 2 more, specialized training in signals intelligence, human intelligence, close quarters combat, advanced marksmanship, and tactical medicine. Another slide. My personnel file was available to every officer in this building. My clearances were active and current. My performance reviews from classified operations were exemplary. Every piece of information needed to utilize my skills was accessible. She lets that sit for a moment. But for 6 months I served coffee. Because I'm 5'4", I speak quietly, and I'm female. Those 3 facts overrode everything else in the minds of the officers I encountered. A colonel in the back row clears his throat. Captain, with all due respect, if you felt you were being underutilized, there were channels you could have used. Formal complaints. Your chain of command. My chain of command assumed I was administrative support. When I tried to correct that assumption, I was told I was being difficult. When I offered tactical input, I was told nobody asked for analysis from the help. She advances to the next slide, shows the operational plan that Webb had been developing, the one that would have killed 30 soldiers. Yesterday morning, I watched senior officers plan an operation in Sector 7. Their intelligence was 4 months out of date. Their tactical approach was based on enemy capabilities that no longer exist. If that operation had proceeded as planned, we would have lost 30 to 40 soldiers in the initial insertion. The entire mission would have been compromised. American prisoners would have become propaganda tools for enemy forces. Several officers leaned forward, studying the displayed plan. I tried to intervene, to share current intelligence based on my recent reconnaissance in that exact sector. I was dismissed, because a woman serving coffee couldn't possibly have relevant operational knowledge. She changes the slide, shows the revised plan, the one she and Morrison developed. This is the corrected approach, using current intelligence, accounting for evolved enemy capabilities, with properly planned insertion points and tactical protocols. This operation has a high probability of success with minimal casualties. The Deputy Secretary of Defense speaks, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes that miss nothing. Captain Mitchell, you're making serious accusations about operational failures, but you've also just admitted you allowed poor planning to continue for hours before intervening. Why didn't you speak up sooner? It's a fair question, the kind that deserves an honest answer. Because I've learned that speaking up as a woman in male-dominated spaces rarely works the first time, or the second time, or the third time. You have to wait for the right moment, for someone with authority to notice you, for an opening that won't be immediately closed. Sarah's voice remained steady, but there's emotion underneath it. I tried to intervene multiple times during that briefing. Each time I was cut off, dismissed, or mocked. I finally decided that watching soldiers die was worse than being humiliated, so I pulled off my glove, showed my ISA ring, and waited for someone to recognize it. She pauses. General Morrison recognized it. Everything changed. Suddenly my input mattered. Suddenly my analysis was valuable. Suddenly I was worth listening to. But here's what bothers me. My analysis was just as accurate before he saw the ring. My experience was just as relevant. My insights were just as important. The only thing that changed was visible proof that I deserved to be heard. Another slide. This one shows statistics. In the past 3 years, the Army has recruited over 15,000 women into combat roles. Many of them have served in Afghanistan and Iraq. Many of them have specialized skills and current intelligence that could inform our operations. But how many of them are being utilized effectively? She doesn't wait for answers. Based on informal surveys and conversations, I estimate less than 30%. The rest are being underutilized, dismissed, or forced into support roles regardless of their qualifications. That's not just unfair, it's strategically stupid. The Director of National Intelligence speaks, an older man with a reputation for blunt honesty. Captain, you're describing a cultural problem that exists across all military branches and intelligence agencies. What makes you think anything we do in this room will change decades of institutional bias? Sarah meets his gaze directly. Because failure is expensive. Yesterday's near disaster would have cost $37 million in equipment, countless man-hours in planning and preparation, and most importantly, 30 to 40 American lives. That's just one operation. How many others are failing because we're not using our best assets? She pulls up another slide. This one hits harder. 3 years ago in Coast Province, my team conducted a classified operation. 4 members of that team died, including Captain James Rodriguez, who had 2 young daughters, Lieutenant Lisa Chen, who was supposed to get married, Sergeant First Class Marcus Williams, who had 19 years of service. Her voice drops quieter, but everyone's still listening. Their deaths were necessary. The mission succeeded. Intelligence was recovered that prevented larger attacks, but I've spent 3 years wondering if our leadership had better utilized available resources, if our planning had incorporated insights from operators who understood the cultural and tactical landscape. Would those 4 people still be alive? The silence in the room has changed, less skeptical, more thoughtful. I can't prove they would have survived, but I can prove that when we ignore capable people because they don't fit our preconceptions, we make worse decisions, and worse decisions cost lives. She advances to the final slide. This one shows recommendations, concrete changes, policy modifications that could be implemented immediately. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for recognition that capability doesn't have a specific appearance. That experience doesn't always come with a deep voice and 6-foot frame. That sometimes the quietest person in the room has the most important information. General Morrison stands, takes his position beside Sarah at the front of the room. I've reviewed Captain Mitchell's service record, her classified operations record, her performance reviews. Everything confirms what she's told you. She's one of the most capable operators we have, and we nearly wasted her serving coffee. He looks around the table, making eye contact with each senior officer. How many others have we wasted? How many talented soldiers have we pushed out because we couldn't see past our own assumptions? How many operations have failed because we dismissed input from people who didn't look like what we expected? The deputy secretary stands as well. Captain Mitchell, your recommendations. Walk us through them. Specifically, what changes can we implement immediately? Sarah pulls up detailed slides. Policy modifications. Review processes. Mandatory diversity training with teeth. Systems for ensuring qualified personnel are properly utilized regardless of appearance or gender. She speaks for another 30 minutes, answering questions, addressing concerns, defending her proposals with data and experience. And slowly something shifts in the room. Skepticism becomes interest. Defensiveness becomes acknowledgement. Resistance becomes acceptance. Not from everyone. Change never happens that cleanly, but from enough people, enough authority, enough power to make things different. When she finishes, the Director of National Intelligence speaks again. Captain Mitchell, I'm approving these recommendations, pending review and modification, but the core concepts are sound. We'll implement them across all intelligence agencies within 6 months. The Deputy Secretary nods. Department of Defense will do the same. We're also establishing a task force to review personnel assignments, to ensure we're utilizing talent effectively. Captain Mitchell, I'd like you to head that task force. Sarah feels something catch in her chest. This is more than she expected, more than she dared hope for. Ma'am, I'm honored, but I should mention that I'm still active in classified operations. My availability might be. Your classified operations are precisely why you're qualified for this role. You understand both sides, the operational reality and the institutional barriers. That makes you uniquely positioned to bridge the gap. General Morrison catches Sarah's eye. There's pride in his expression and something else. Relief, maybe, that she succeeded, that his faith in her wasn't misplaced. The briefing concludes. Officers file out. Some stop to shake Sarah's hand. Others nod with respect. A few avoid eye contact, uncomfortable with what they've heard, unwilling to fully accept it yet. But that's okay. Change doesn't require universal approval, just enough momentum to overcome institutional inertia. Sarah packs up her materials, suddenly exhausted, the adrenaline that carried her through the briefing draining away all at once. Morrison approaches. You did well, better than well. You did exactly what needed to be done. I couldn't have done it without your support, sir. Maybe, but I didn't write that briefing, didn't develop those recommendations, didn't stand up there and tell a room full of senior officers that they've been making mistakes. That was all you. He pauses. Your father would be proud. Sarah feels tears threatening, pushes them back. Not here, not now. Thank you, sir. One more thing. There's someone waiting for you outside, someone who heard about your briefing and wanted to meet you. Sarah walks to the door, opens it, and standing in the hallway is a young woman, maybe 23, Army uniform, staff sergeant rank, brown skin, black hair pulled back tight, nervous expression. Captain Mitchell. Yes. I'm Staff Sergeant Emma Walsh. I just finished my second deployment in Iraq. I'm trying to apply for Ranger School, but I keep getting told I'm not a good fit. She swallows hard, working up courage. I heard what you did, how you spoke up, and I thought maybe if I could talk to you, maybe you could tell me how to make them listen, how to make them see me as something more than what they expect. Sarah looks at this young woman, sees herself 6 years ago, all that potential, all that determination, all that frustration at being dismissed. Walk with me, Sergeant Walsh. I'll tell you what I've learned about speaking up, about fighting systems, about being strong even when everyone expects you to be weak. They walk down the Pentagon hallway together, 2 women in uniform, one learning to raise her voice, one teaching how to make it carry. And maybe, Sarah thinks, maybe this is how change actually happens, not through grand gestures, not through single heroic moments, but through small acts of courage repeated over and over, by people who refuse to accept that things have to stay the way they've always been. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. And sometimes acting is exactly what dignity requires. What happens when the shadows call you back? 3 weeks later, Sarah sits in her new office, Director of Personnel Utilization and Development. The title is bureaucratic. The work is exactly what she wanted: reviewing assignments, identifying underutilized talent, breaking down barriers that keep capable people from contributing fully. She's already processed 47 cases. Women assigned to administrative roles despite combat experience. Men dismissed for not fitting traditional leadership profiles. Soldiers with language skills sitting in positions where those skills go unused. Each file she corrects feels like a small victory. Each person she helps redirect feels like honoring Rodriguez, Chen, and Williams. Her promotion ceremony is scheduled for next week. Major Sarah Mitchell, a rank that comes with real authority, the power to actually change things. Her phone rings. Unknown number. She almost doesn't answer, but something makes her pick up. Captain Mitchell. It's been 3 weeks since you broke your silence. The voice is familiar, female, cold, professional. Patricia. Patricia Chen, Lisa's older sister, also ISA, also operating in places that don't officially exist. I heard about your briefing, about your new position, about how you're changing the system from the inside. I'm trying. That's admirable, really, but I'm calling because we need you. Sarah's hand tightens on the phone. I'm out, I did my time, I've moved on. Have you? Because I'm looking at intelligence that suggests otherwise. A leak in the Pentagon, classified operational plans being compromised, patterns suggesting an insider threat. Sarah's mind starts working, automatically analyzing old habits that never quite died. You should contact counterintelligence. We have. They're investigating through official channels, which means whoever's leaking information has at least 3 months to keep compromising operations. We don't have 3 months. What do you want from me? You're in the Pentagon. You have access. You understand the culture. You can move through spaces that official investigations can't touch. We need you to find the leak. Sarah stands, walks to her window, looks out at the building she's supposed to be reforming. I have a promotion ceremony next week, a new position, responsibilities. And if the leak continues, how many soldiers die? How many operations fail? It's the same question Sarah asked herself 3 weeks ago. The same choice: stay comfortable or do what's necessary. How bad is it? 3 operations compromised in the last month. 2 resulted in casualties that could have been prevented. The third was scrubbed at the last minute, but we lost valuable intelligence opportunities. Sarah closes her eyes, seeing faces, soldiers she doesn't know, families she's never met, people who deserve better than commanders who can't protect operational security. What's the timeline? We've identified the next target, a joint operation involving NATO allies. If the enemy has advanced knowledge, it could result in massive casualties. Timeline is 72 hours, maybe less. 72 hours, 3 days, not enough time for official investigations, not enough time for proper channels. I need full access to ISA intelligence networks. You'll have it. And if this goes wrong, if I'm caught operating outside official channels, then Major Sarah Mitchell returns to her promotion ceremony with no knowledge of this conversation. We'll make sure of it. It's the same arrangement they always operated under: success in shadows, failure in silence, service without recognition. Sarah looks at her desk, at the files she's been working through, at the changes she's been implementing, all the good she's been doing in the light. But the shadows are calling, and the shadows have always known her name. Send me the intelligence package, encrypted, I'll start tonight. Thank you, Sarah. Don't thank me, just make sure it's worth it. She ends the call, sits back down at her desk, looks at her calendar, full of meetings, briefings, policy reviews, all the legitimate work she's built. And underneath it now something else, a secret operation, an unofficial investigation, a return to the world she thought she'd left behind. Her door opens. Emma Walsh enters, the young woman she met after the Joint Chiefs briefing. Captain Mitchell, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to thank you again. My Ranger School application was approved. They start me next month. Sarah smiles, genuine pride warming her chest. That's excellent news, Sergeant. You earned it. I earned it because you showed me how to fight for it, because you changed the system that was keeping me out. Emma hesitates. Is everything okay? You look worried. Sarah considers what to say, how much to share. She settles on a version of the truth. Just thinking about how much work there is left to do, how many more people we need to help, how many more barriers we need to break down. We'll get there, with people like you leading the way. Emma leaves, full of hope, full of belief that the system can be fixed, that change is possible. And Sarah sits in her office, knowing she's about to step back into shadows, to operate outside the system she's been reforming, to become invisible again even as she's more visible than ever. Her phone buzzes, an encrypted file, Patricia's intelligence package, detailed analysis of compromised operations, patterns suggesting the leak's identity, evidence that can't be used in official channels because it was gathered through methods that officially don't exist. Sarah opens the file, starts reading, her mind shifting into operational mode, the mode she thought she'd retired, the mode that kept her alive in places where one mistake meant death. She has 72 hours, 3 days to find a traitor, to stop a leak, to save an operation that could cost dozens of lives. And she has to do it while maintaining her official duties, while preparing for a promotion ceremony, while pretending she's still just the woman reforming personnel policies. The duality isn't new, but it's harder now, because now she has something to lose: recognition, respect, a future that exists in the light instead of the shadows. But soldiers are going to die if she does nothing. Families will be destroyed. Futures will be erased. And Sarah has never been able to watch people die when she had the power to stop it. She closes the file, locks her computer, checks her watch. 6 hours until the Pentagon empties for the night. 6 hours to prepare, to plan, to become invisible again. Some commitments run deeper than career advancement. Some callings are stronger than personal comfort. Some duties can't be ignored, no matter how much easier it would be to look away. The shadows are calling, and Major Sarah Mitchell, Director of Personnel Reform, is about to answer, because dignity doesn't just speak, it acts when action is required, even when that action means becoming something the world can never fully acknowledge. Sometimes the price of service is choosing between the light and the shadows, and sometimes the bravest choice is learning to operate in both, even when it costs everything, even when nobody will ever know. The memorial awaits another visit, another conversation with ghosts, another promise that their sacrifices will matter. But first, there's work to do, in the shadows, where the most important battles are fought by people whose names will never appear in history books. Sarah Mitchell stands, straightens her uniform, and steps into the darkness that has always known her name. Because some soldiers never truly leave the battlefield, they just learn to fight on multiple fronts simultaneously. And sometimes that's what honor demands,